Shooters are really satisfying games, but the absolute best ones are the ones that really make you feel the impact of your actions with its sounds. And this goes with everything: shots, explosions, reloads, hits, and whiffs. But what's even more satisfying is when there's a nice rhythm to things. You know those moments, those times when sounds just seem to line up in that perfect way and it really sticks out to you, or when you're bored and just start shooting to the background music. But what if I said there were a game that takes that fun little feeling of rhythm in shooters and took it to the extreme? That's what BPM Bullets Per Minute is, a rhythm shooter roguelike. Everything is to the beat in BPM. Shots, reloads, enemy attacks, and even your own footsteps all follow that rhythm, and it is so damn satisfying to play. But even with all this, you probably haven't heard of the game until now, and if you have, you might have just forgotten about it or heard recommendations that go along the lines of buy it on a sale. Well, frankly, that's the unfortunate reality of this game, a forgotten sale-only grab. And let me tell you why it's like this. Starting with the good, I'll lead this off with saying that I was extremely excited for BPM. It was even one of my most anticipated releases of 2020. It was the kind of game that had me counting the days and really want to jump on that hour one release. And I'm honestly not that kind of person, so I was really excited for BPM. So naturally, when the game dropped, when my expectations were at an all-time high, you know what happens with overhype. Nah, I'm just kidding, this game fucking delivered. Everything that it advertised and everything it claimed to be, it did it all so well. The music, the sounds, the rhythm, everything was as satisfying as I hoped it would be. And one of the best parts about BPM is that it felt like a shooter first and foremost. This wasn't a rhythm game with a shooter theme. There's no prompts to tell you when to shoot or reload or move. There's no song selection with timed levels. Everything felt as natural as a shooter should be. You do what feels right and the rhythm is there. BPM sold its gimmick extremely well. It did everything it strived to be. It was the perfect fusion of rhythm game and shooter. But in the end, that's all it had. A gimmick. It was only a surface level satisfaction. Underneath its rhythm shooter formula was a game in a pretty sad state with a bleak future. So, when it comes to the bad parts about the game, I don't know where to start. The main problem here is that BPM is riddled with these small issues that wouldn't be too bad alone, but add up together to overpower the one good thing it has. First of all, the game runs terribly. Frame drops, stutters, high resource consumption for God knows what it's loading. And all of those resources seem to go to nothing too. The game looks terrible. Everything is plastered over with this horrible eye-gouging filter that stunts visibility and just makes headaches. And everything that I've shown so far isn't even as red as it gets. This is how red it gets. This is terrible. I can't see anything. It hurts to look at. The game wants to be a roguelike, but it has no replayability. You can find practically every gun and item in the game in less than 2 hours. On top of that, characters weren't unique at all. The individuality of each character was restricted to their starting gun, a health gimmick, and passive stats. That's it. Unique skills and ultimates had to be unlocked with completed playthroughs with that character. But the issue is that you could also find those items from the start of the game just by sheer luck. So, with a lack of unlockable items at all, or basic in-game acknowledgement of your victories, there's hardly an incentive to play that character ever again once you beat the game with them. So, that low item variety and excessive character similarities resulted in a game that just felt the same every run. The game has a heavy emphasis on character stats, which don't affect the way you play the game. You just do what you always do, but better. You move a little bit faster, you do a bit more damage, your attacks have a bit more range, but you're not doing anything different. And the more interesting items were limited to just 4 slots. There was quite literally a limitation on how unique each playthrough would feel. Everything boils down to high health, high damage, high speed character with the same 1 or 2 items that you had in your last run. But once again, all you do is click to the beat. But worst of all, the absolute nail in the coffin was the lack of developer support. Every one of these problems is addressable, but that's if the devs were still there. The devs have practically dropped the game and disappeared. There were a few patches for bugs and literally 1 content or balance patch near release, but that was it. Absolute radio silence from release to February. 5 months of absolutely nothing. And while they broke the silence with a major update, the Overdrive update with new characters, items, and content, it was far too late. The game didn't have nearly enough content to keep players around for 5 months. Hell, it couldn't even be remembered for 5 months. I'm only talking about this game because I suddenly found it buried in my Steam library 4 months after the Overdrive update for footage talking about a completely different game that's good. And while the Overdrive update is definitely good in the fact that it expands on every part of the game, at least enough for me to want to acknowledge it, BPM had lost its chance with me long ago. After all, at the time of this video, it's been another 4 months of silence. Who's to say anyone should care about the game anymore, because it sure as hell doesn't seem like the devs do. So, it pains me to say all this stuff. It really does. BPM is an ambitious game that did what it wanted to. It proved that a rhythm shooter game could work, and it kills me to say that it did it really well, because the game that the concept is tied to is lackluster and shallow. The concept of a rhythm shooter feels shackled down by this game that was forgotten by the devs and its audience. I would have loved to see this game become the next big roguelike, but by far I would have loved to see more rhythm shooters. This just scratches an itch that nothing else has even come close to touching, and I would love to see the genre of rhythm shooters take off. But for now, this game is one of a kind, and for the sake of the concept, not the game itself, I really wish that BPM popped off. I want people to see that the concept itself isn't broken, the game is. Just like how the market flooded with deck builder roguelikes after Slay the Spire, I would have loved to see new takes on rhythm shooters. So, in the end, I have to leave you with these bittersweet words. Please try out BPM, but only on a sale. But at the same time, with 4 ongoing months of radio silence, who knows when that's gonna happen.